Good morning, everybody. This is Anna Jenkins, Marketing Coordinator at Core BTS, and welcome to today's webinar, Microsoft System Center, Revolutionize the Way You Manage Your IT Organization. Throughout our presentation this morning, we encourage you to interact with us by typing in questions and comments using the question and answer pane. We'll be answering questions live both during the event and after the presentation. We're recording today's session, and we'll send a link to the recording after the event via email. Today on our panel, we have Dan Christie, Solutions Architect at Core BTS, and Keith Hennessy, who is also Solutions Architect at Core BTS. And at this time, I will pass it along to Dan to get us started.
Thank you, and good morning. And welcome to today's webinar on Microsoft System Center. Today we'll be providing a high-level overview of how System Center can help revolutionize the way you manage your IT organization by leveraging Configuration Manager and Windows Entune. Just a little bit of background on who Core BTS is. Core BTS works closely with all of our clients to understand not only their technology needs, but also their strategic direction and what they need as far as technology solutions and assistance in order to plan, design, implement appropriate IT solutions, working both with our partners and with our clients. As all of you probably know, today's challenges revolve mainly around how users and employees want to work on an organization. So the explosion in use and number of consumer devices and the way people want information wherever they are, whenever they need to work, is changing the way that people use and perceive technology. In addition to how that technology shapes their personal lives and their work lives, the constant flow of information throughout the day, being available 24 hours a day, and wanting that easy access to information certainly is blurring the lines between work and our home life. And these shifting boundaries are accompanied by a belief that personal technology, as we all know, is not only supposed to work, it just works, but it's customized to fit their personalities, their activities and schedules, and they want it to extend into the workplace. So by accommodating the consumerization of IT, or these personal devices, it certainly does prevent a variety of challenges. In most cases, not most or all those devices are owned by the employees and not managed by corporate IT. If we consider the new, or the way it was previously, prior to that, all those devices were owned and managed by corporate IT, so we knew what was installed, how they were used, and we had more control over that. So the policies and processes that we focused on were around device management, and they were usually on a relatively small, tightly controlled and managed set of computer and corporate-approved hardware that was subject to replacement cycles that corporate dictated, not following the typical 6 to 12-month replacement cycles that we're seeing with consumer devices. As we all know, the consumerization of IT has dramatically changed the way that scenario works. Now there's a greatly increased device and operating system diversity. There's much higher volume in the organization as far as the number of devices, types of devices that we have to look at, manage, and understand. And it fundamentally changes the way the IT landscape looks, and also changes the way that we need to look at the way we manage and how we work with that tight control and switch from a device-centric to a user-centric approach to governance. So if we look at the different things, you have users, they want to work in any location. We have devices constantly changing. Every 6 to 12 months, the new latest and greatest device comes out. While in many cases, users have multiple devices. On all those devices, they have all the applications. So not only their personal applications, but also their work applications, work information that they want to get to. And then we have data sitting all over the place. So many organizations have SharePoint, intranet, file servers, application data. So we need to understand how that all works together. That's where Microsoft System Center and Windows Entune can start to come into place. So Microsoft has a long history of providing rich IT infrastructure solutions to help manage every aspect of enterprise organizations and the operations that go along with that. Microsoft's new people-centric approach consists of products and technologies that can help IT departments handle the influx of these consumer-oriented technology and the work style expectations of our new workers, thereby helping an increased productivity and satisfaction for the people within our organizations. Microsoft's people-centric IT vision helps organizations enable and embrace the consumerization of IT by enabling the end users to allow them to work on the devices of their choice and providing consistent access to corporate resources from those devices. It helps unify your IT environment by delivering comprehensive application and device management from both your existing on-premises infrastructure, including things like System Center Configuration Manager, Windows Server, and Active Directory, as well as cloud-based services, including Windows Entune and Windows Azure, helping protect your data. And it also helps protect your data by protecting corporate information and managing the risks. So how does it do that? So Microsoft offers solutions for both on-premise and in the cloud to help manage not only the devices and systems, but also your users. So things like unified device management through System Center, R2 Configuration Manager, and Windows Entune is designed for those larger scale infrastructures, environments, and has much better scalability up to 100,000 devices. If that's a little bit more than what you need for your organization, Windows Entune is another great solution that provides the ability for standalone management, simplified policy controls for the smaller scale environments, up to 7,000 devices and 4,000 users.
Hey, Dan, it's Keith. You know, the one thing that we noticed in System Center 2012, as they continue this path in a hybrid environment, is they tend to take some of the best of both worlds. So, for example, we've had clients in the past where they would have your traditional infrastructure on-prem, where you have a number of devices, domain-joined devices, et cetera. And, you know, that would be a good play for System Center, right? SCCM would work fine in that environment. But we've had clients where they have a mobile workforce where they have PCs that aren't even joined to the domain, but they still want to manage those machines. So that's where the, you know, using SCCM in conjunction with Entune, having a single pane of glass and being able to take that configuration and utilize Entune to manage your non-domain joined, non-LAN devices, non-WAN devices, your mobile workforce, especially on the PC side. You know, that's where Entune comes in. We've seen a lot of that where that merging of the two technologies. And the nice thing is it's a single console to manage. So.
All right. Yeah, thank you for that additional insight. So if we start this is where we're going to start digging a little bit deeper. So if we look at the three ways that System Center, R2 Configuration Manager, helps enable IT to provide these benefits, first, it helps empower our users. So it allows them to be more productive from almost anywhere on almost any device. We'll get into that a little bit here of how that is accomplished. It helps unify that infrastructure management. So now, you know, that, as Keith mentioned, that single pane of glass for servers, personal devices, PCs, et cetera. And it simplifies that administration, which helps improve the IT efficiency and allows the IT group to focus on more important strategic efforts.
So Dan, it looks like we have a question here quickly before we move forward from Albert, who wants to know what we would recommend for a small business, about 300 users over 19 locations.
So if those, Keith, if those locations are you know, are domain joined, System Center, which would certainly work. It's relatively inexpensive from a user perspective. You know, the expense usually comes in on the server side of things with System Center. So usually the user side of things is pretty you know, pretty nominal from a cost perspective. But if you don't want to build out that infrastructure from a System Center perspective on-prem, you know, Intune's a good suggestion. You know, it's funny that depending on your licensing model, Entune actually comes with System Center or vice versa. So there's a lot of blending between the two pieces of technology and also Microsoft EMS. So I would say that if you're gonna, you know, if you have a multiple locations, maybe you don't want to do the infrastructure on-prem. The only thing you really lose with the Entune side of things is your imaging. That imaging out of the cloud doesn't work. But your app pushes and your management of those machines will still work on the Entune side of the house. So I guess we'll give the old IT answer right there. It depends. But certainly you can utilize either technology or a combination of both. So.
All right, thank you. All right, so moving on to how System Center and Entune can help empower your users. So the new focus of Configuration Manager is one of empowering users by putting them at the center of the IT universe. Part of this, a lot of it was around delivering devices and applications. It wasn't so much focused on the users themselves. So not only does it put them at the center, but it also supports user self-service, bring your own device initiatives, workforce mobility, and help support and help you manage that overall IT consumerization trend. So users, as we mentioned, want and need access to their applications and data from a much wider variety of devices and locations than they ever did before. And this new approach, to take that user-centric approach, helps us deliver those applications and shift that focus from delivering a device and that really locked down single way of doing things to shifting to delivering the applications and information to the employees where they need it and whatever device they're using, while still giving IT that control, management, and security that they need. And we'll get into how some of those things are accomplished in a few minutes here. Oops. All right, so if we look at unified device management, obviously a key area, you don't want to have to go into multiple portals, multiple systems to figure out how we're going to manage each of those types of devices. So from an IT perspective, we need a way to simplify that management. So we have all these different devices out there our employees are using, but we still need to be able to provide the tools and security that the company dictates and that we require. Leveraging SCCM 2012 and Windows Entune, we can use that one management console to start to centrally manage and set policies for all those client devices, whether it's a Windows PC, a Mac, or all those mobile devices that are sitting out there, our iPads, Windows tablets, Android, et cetera. If we take a quick look at the platform support, it does cover a wide variety of all the most key platforms that are out there. So obviously Windows 8.1 is going to be covered, down to Windows 7, Windows 8 Phone, Windows 10 when it comes out, as well as our iOS, Android, Mac, and even Linux and Unix devices. And then the Microsoft Entune company portal apps are as a way to deliver those, similar to an enterprise app store, deliver the company applications that you want to out to each of those devices, and there's applications for each of the platforms that are available.
So Dan, I think one of the stigmas in the past has been, Microsoft is just Microsoft centric, and I believe that they've gone great lengths to realize that they are not anymore, the king of they're not the king of the mobile world, let's face it. So, they've done a really good job, especially in the latest and greatest versions here, to be able to do a full MDM, as you see on this platform support here on the Android and the iOS side, being able to push out applications, being able to not only grab applications from the actual app store, side load them, et cetera. So they have a lot of bells and whistles in the product set, and frankly, the way that things are going, you kind of need that single console because, doing your MDM off of your MDM separate from the way you manage your PCs, it's not that viable anymore. I think you need to have all of your devices being managed centrally to really cut down on the headaches and learning all these other technologies just to do it. System Center is approaching that real good, again, blending of between the devices on the PC side and then the iOS, Android, Mac, all that good stuff. So they've done a real good job in the latest version, and I think they've embraced the, it's not just Microsoft anymore kind of world.
Right, exactly. Yeah, and that good segue into the next area, which is talking a little bit about how those employees can register and get their devices into the management solution so that we can deliver those applications information. So as we all know, that when a user wants to register or wants to use their own device, immediately raises a lot of requirements and concerns from both the user side and the IT. So the user is wondering what you're going to do to their device. From an IT and security perspective, we need to make sure that the corporate information remains secure, that we have control over it, and it's not out there, as well as the compliance regulatory requirements. So with Windows Server 2012, as well as System Center, there is a new concept known now as device registration. So users can register bring your own devices for single sign-on, allow them to get access to their corporate data using Workplace Join, and it's through Active Directory as well as certificates. From an IT perspective, we can publish access to corporate resources with the web application proxy, and that can be used on a device awareness. So how is it registered? What type of device is it? Where are they? As well as the user's identity. And additionally, multi-factor authentication can be used through Windows Azure Active Authentication, which used to be known as phone factor. So that provides you that second level of authentication that you look for. From a user perspective, and this also helps out IT, is that users can enroll their own devices, which configures their devices for management with Windows Entune, if that's being leveraged. And then once they're registered and enrolled, then they can use the company portal, which is the company application portal that I talked about. It gives them easy access to corporate applications and data, and allows IT and the user to manage their own devices and perform things such as remote wipe in the event that they're lost, stolen, or replaced. And again, we'll cover that a little bit more in depth the next couple slides here.
And as you see here, this is also going into your Azure. Whether we've seen instances where people will set up distribution points, in Windows Azure for their remote sites. So there's a lot of kind of merging here where you can utilize Microsoft's data center, their Azure cloud. You can also utilize the Entune piece, and they kind of have a combination together. Microsoft has also EMS, which is kind of their enterprise management suite, and that kind of, again, bleeds into Entune. It has Entune incorporated into it, and has some System Center capabilities, as well as capabilities within the Azure piece to do the EMS piece. Comes with some product sets on the Azure side, Active Directory in the cloud, et cetera. So there's a lot of Microsoft, doesn't quite keep it simple, but there's a lot of products out there, and they kind of keep it dynamic and robust enough that you can kind of fit it into any organization's needs.
Right. So building on that, so in addition to once they register the device and they're managed, there are a lot of things that you can then inventory and discover about those devices. And then by default, one of the key things is that user-enrolled devices are personal. And one of the concerns that a lot of employees have when they register devices or enable that MDM or MAM capabilities is, what about my personal information? So with the Microsoft solution, personal device is the only applications and only information that is controlled by corporate IT is the business delivered applications and information. And that's for the majority of the platforms. Personal devices, so it can look at what devices has corporate rolled out, which ones are installed, what type of devices, operating system, and then it also allows the ability to determine what applications get installed on corporate devices versus personal devices. So a lot of flexibility gives IT enough control into the environment, but not overbearing that there will be concerns from the user side of things. And if we take a quick look at just some of the mobile device settings, on here, you'll notice that a lot of the things that you want to configure, so setting up things like VPN, Wi-Fi, requiring passwords, which browsers are used, things like that. A lot of flexibility, definitely on the Windows and the iOS. It's continuing to grow, in the Android space as that comes along as well. Something to continue watching, as Keith mentioned earlier, Microsoft realizes that they're no longer just the only player out there, and are looking more for that heterogeneous environment management console. Okay, so I believe I skipped a slide. Hang on a minute. All right, so starting to dig in a little bit deeper to some of these settings. So if we look at resource access control and configuration, again, there's a lot of things that can be set out there. So you can set up that VPN connectivity automatically so that users don't need to understand what needs to be set up. You can also, with Windows 8, set up a VPN connection that automatically gets triggered for certain applications. And it's also now at the application level, which is very powerful. So instead of having the full device need to go to VPN, you can do it on a per application basis. And when an application is launched from that device, it'll automatically launch the VPN connection as well. This is also now available with Apple devices as of iOS 7. So again, users or IT professionals can specify which managed applications can use VPN, and in conjunction when you use it through Entune. And it'll make that connection experience seamless for the user. So instead of them having, again, to go through and connect the VPN and then run the application or access a document, it'll automatically be triggered. So a very powerful feature.
So those are some of the newer features that came out, and those are centrally around devices. So you see how they're leaning towards the device side of things, with the VPN access, the Wi-Fi, to get more clarity around controlling those devices.
Right, and as we look at like VPN profiles, one of those key things that it provides that secure tunnel into the environment. As always, you have to have some way to get the devices back into the environment. So by simplifying that, those settings and making that easier for the users, kind of increases the security and makes life much easier for the administrators. So again, the VPN profiles is just a set of tools that help IT create, deploy, and monitor VPN profiles. So it reduces the end user effort that's required to connect to resources. And then when you create that VPN profile, you can include a wide range of security settings, including what certificates need to be pushed down for server validation, and how you want the clients to authenticate. And that's all done through the configuration manager. And it supports, as I mentioned, Windows 8.1, Windows RT, as well as devices running iOS 7 and higher. And those are all released with the System Center R2 Configuration Manager Service Pack 1. And that will also now support Android 4.0 and later. Same thing as we mentioned with the VPN profiles. You can also do the Wi-Fi and certificate profiles. So very similar. You can set up security settings, what those connectivities are, push out certificates, and so on through SCCM and Entune. Just kind of in the. All right. So another feature that's been introduced with the latest release is a new feature called work folders. Very similar to a lot of the other solutions that are out there, so Citrix ShareFile, some of the EMC, Dropbox. So it's a new server feature that allows employees to access their files from inside outside the corporate environment. And it provides that single point of access for work files on a user's work and personal PC, including iPads. It allows them to access their work files while offline and then sync them back up with the central file server when that PC or device next connects either through the internet or through the network connectivity or through the network. It does encrypt the data in transit as well as at rest, so it allows you to protect that information, feel much more secure and safe in the knowledge that it is encrypted and protected. And there are processes in place that allow corporate to wipe company data through the device management services such as Windows Entune. It leverages all the existing file server management technologies, including file classification and folder quotas. It does allow you to specify security policies to instruct the user's PCs and devices to encrypt that and require that, as well as a lock password on the screen. And then it does provide high availability through failover clustering.
Dan, it looks like we have a question here. Richard asked us, what terminates the VPN at the application end? I believe this is related to what you're talking about on the last slide.
What terminates the VPN connection on the device side?
At the app end.
At the app end? So what it does is it's a VPN tunnel. It's just triggered by that application. So again, rather than previously users had to go and launch whatever that VPN client was and then creates that whole tunnel to the device. This was just on an application level, and that's built into the OS level. So on iPhones and iOS, that VPN tunnel actually is between the application itself and the VPN termination point on your company side. So nothing else on that device at that time can use that VPN tunnel. Hopefully that answers that question.
Yeah, this is commonly the way that people do the application sandboxing, application virtualization on devices nowadays. Is MDM companies, when they're looking at containering and siloing and kind of sandboxing, they tend to lead towards a micro VPN, which is kind of between the application and the data center, wherever the application ends up from a perspective of, if it's for example, an email application creates a micro VPN back to the email, back to the data center where the email server is stored, and that's how it connects. So it's not necessarily a whole device VPN. It's what's referred to as a micro VPN.
All right. That it for questions, then, Anna?
Yeah, looks good. Thank you.
Okay. All right. So if we look at the next level here, it's all around protecting the data. So, that user access isn't just about applications. Ultimately, it really comes down to corporate data. And users want that access and are able to access through the solution that corporate data regardless of their device location. So having the ability to get access to distributed data, or having an easy way and an integrated way of gaining access back to centralized data is key to ensuring that users can still be productive when working remotely. So both System Center, Entune, and Windows Server work together to provide a way to sync that data out to the user devices, which is great because now we get that information out there. But what we really want is ways to ensure that we can protect that. So IT can now create those business-driven access policies based on who the user is, what device they're using, and where they are. So being able to set those policies, at a storage level, it definitely becomes challenging and time-consuming. So by switching the way you're looking at those policies and switching to an access policies that are now centrally maintained and deployed using group policy, as well as the capabilities built into Entune and SCCM, makes it a lot easier, and now you're not protecting the storage, you're protecting the data. IT can also enforce the policies based on the content being accessed. So when the policies are created, they can be configured to be applied and enforced based on the type of information in the documents. For example, we can restrict who can access a document based on a specific phrase or keywords. So if we think of like credit card numbers, social security numbers, or other personally identifiable information, we can now have those policies set to those. And most importantly probably is the ability to now centrally audit those access policies and control and understand the user access to those to help with compliance. So a lot of compliance is all about being able to set that configuration, security, and policies to meet the rules, and make sure that you can prove that you are adhering to those rules. being able to have that audit capability and that audit trail is where you need to provide that information to meet those audit requirements. Oops. I guess that slide did not translate very well up to the server. Apologies on that. One more thing on that previous slide. So once your users enroll, there's two levels of ways that we can protect the data. So as I mentioned earlier, users have the ability to manage their devices. So if they are aware that it's lost or stolen, they can go out themselves and completely wipe that device. So that allows them to, protect both their personal information as well as the company information. If that device is being retired or the employee is leaving the organization, then from a corporate IT perspective, we have the ability to go out and just remove the corporate applications as well as the corporate data, leaving all the personal information and personal data untouched. So just to recap a little bit on the unified device. So again, a lot of capabilities, as that device becomes more and more ingrained in the environment, the ability to control what's on that device and what we can do with it obviously increases. So, but even just simply by registering a device, it now allows us to give them email, publish those work folders if that's a feature that we want to do, implement that conditional access as well as maintain that audit trail. And then as we incorporate mobile device management, now we have the ability to go further into that device, again, from a company perspective, to give us that compliance reporting, selective data wipe, so only wiping out the corporate information. All right. So as I mentioned, the biggest change with Microsoft and where System Center and Entune come in place is that we're switching from that device-centric approach to delivering applications. So anybody that gets a laptop gets application XYZ, whether or not they need that. So now we're switching more to a user-centric way of delivering applications. So Microsoft System Center Configuration Manager provides that ability to use that user-centric approach and deliver applications that give them access to the corporate resources where and when they need them. So a good example of that is if a user is accessing the network with a laptop, they may get application X installed via MSI, so that full application installation occurs on that laptop. But now if that user is coming into the network and wants to use that application from their home PC, most likely we're going to deliver that through virtual desktops or something like AppV, so that we maintain that corporate data within our data center, but still allow the users the capability and the ability to get in, use their application, and perform their work. Gives us the IT flexibility they need to deal with all these different devices, but still maintains that secure and compliant environment. So you get that end user satisfaction, but the ability to maintain that control. That's a very powerful way of being flexible with that application delivery.
Hey, Dan, it looks like we have a question coming in here. Sure. William wants to know if we're going to cover anything outside of just mobile devices today.
Yes, the next couple of slides will start digging a little bit more into the it'll start digging a little bit more into the capabilities of System Center and how it's changed and some of the improvements in that environment.
Great, thank you, Dan.
Thanks. Okay. So, continuing to build on that user-centered application delivery mechanism. So, Configuration Manager accomplishes this user centricity through completely new application models. So that allows administrators to target applications to users, as I mentioned, rather than devices. And so the way that works is Configuration Manager looks at the relationship between the user and the device that they're using. So as we mentioned, if it's a personal device, then we want to deliver that application in a different methodology. In that way, it supports Windows devices, mobile devices, can integrate with things like Citrix. And it's that seamless transition from one device to another, again, maintaining that security, but also giving users that flexibility and continuity between applications and devices.
So if we look at this slide here, basically the user again, as Dan pointed out, depending on what device they have, depending on who the user is, and depending on the network connection, they can automatically get served up different types of configurations and different types of application delivery mechanisms, I guess. And so it's kind of an automatic configuration. So, as Dan said, if you're on one device and it's, it's a Windows RT device or something like that, you're not going to get the full-blown version of the app. You may get it automatically delivered through the Citrix receiver that's on the application, or through AppV. If it's a straight Windows device that is sitting on a good network connection, that may automatically be delivered via MSI and actually installed onto the device itself. And guys, when we're talking about devices, we're not specifically saying mobile devices. We're just, that's a generic term at this point for PC, Mac, iOS, Android. It doesn't really make a difference at this point. And that's how things are going towards on the System Center side, where they're allowing you to, based on just who you are and what device it is, and looking at, if then then that, right? If you are this user and you're connecting through this device type, we're going to serve out that same application through AppV. If you are this user and you're connecting on this device type, then we're going to push out the MSI. So it's pretty powerful, and once set up, it's automated. So you don't have to worry about what the user is engaged on or what kind of device they're engaged on, whether it's a PC or a laptop or a Mac or at Starbucks or wherever they are. The nice thing is it gives you that ability to automate the process, kind of almost like a workflow on whatever the user is on. So it's pretty powerful.
All right, I'm going to jump ahead a couple slides just in the interest of time, and also to get a little bit deeper into the actual System Center capabilities. The one last thing I did want to talk about a little bit more on that user-centric side of things is the the application delivery way. So that self-service, and that's one of the primary ways that's delivered is through that company portal, application portal. So very similar to all the other MDM platforms as far as that enterprise application store. So you just go out and browse for the applications that corporate has delivered, and they install them or access them, based on the type of device and what experience they're out there. So fully controlled by the administrator based on the users, so that they can see what they have access to and lock it down. And that is available on all the application stores, so the Windows Store, Android Store, Google Play, and as well as the Apple Store. All right, so digging a little bit deeper into the System Center side of things, System Center 2012 does really start to pull all the pieces together as far as looking at the different ways to manage your environment. So it provides a good way to unify and centrally manage all aspects of both the application delivery as well as device management. So it gives you that single pane of glass view and control over things like compliance settings, software updates, provides the ability and access to setting up cloud-based delivery distribution points, how you deliver that information, and also there's a lot of reduced infrastructure requirements that we'll start to get into here in a few minutes. So if we look at some of the ways that the infrastructure requirements are done, again, it does consolidate all that client management security down to a single infrastructure. So a lot of improvements even between the first release of System Center 2012 and R2. Not only does it begin to simplify that environment, pull all those panes of glass of your MDM, asset management, things like that. It actually now has the ability to lower the number of physical servers, primary and secondary sites that are required, provides a lot of scalability enhancements, and does use that a lot more in-console monitoring to track your software distribution, patches, as well as reporting on infrastructure utilization to help you reduce the cost and complexity of your system center environment. So one of the ways that is accomplished is, the unified device management. So now instead of having a separate dedicated mobile device management console, separate way of setting up, VPN connectivity, all that, it now integrates, that full device management is now in the console. So when you open up the SCCM console, you have access to, the Windows Entune subscription setup and configuration. You can brand it. That's where you configure your company portal applications. And then it, also provides all the capability to get down into device and client management. And as Keith mentioned, that isn't just mobile devices. So I know a lot of times when we talk about clients or mobile devices or devices, that a lot of times it leads to that. But it is that full Mac, Windows, both company-owned and personal devices. As with most things, cost savings, improvements, any way to, not only help you better manage your environment, but also to, reduce the complexity and costs around how you manage that environment is important as well. So if you think about it, with System Center, there's a lot more consolidation. So in many cases, organizations were able to cut down their number of physical servers by now having the ability to co-locate system site rules onto a single server instead of having to spread them out across multiple servers. So, reduces the number of distribution points. A lot of times they were able to eliminate servers required for client security as they integrated or leveraged System Center endpoint protection with SCCM. And then also it allowed them to simplify the overall architecture by reducing, like we mentioned before, the number of primary and secondary sites and distribution points. And as we briefly mentioned earlier, Configuration Manager now allows and supports the use of distribution points that run on Microsoft Windows Azure. So now you can set up an access or a distribution point on the cloud. So if there's some rollout or you just need to set up a distribution point, you no longer have to use a physical server. You can now leverage Windows Azure as a place for that distribution point. Definitely reduces your infrastructure costs and prevents you from, or reduces the need to invest in more hardware just for a distribution point. And it now does, as I mentioned before, it does have that cross-platform integration that supports Mac, OS X, servers running Linux and Unix operating systems. That allows you to do compliance settings, deploy software, include those main inventory collection tasks. So now you can fully get a better idea of what your environment consists of, what software is out there, and again, helps you reduce those costs as you understand better what's running in your environment. And now it does have much better integration with Citrix Zenab. So now you can leverage your Citrix environment if that's in place through Configuration Manager and use that as another way to distribute applications to users. All right. So digging a little bit deeper into security and compliance. So, in addition to leveraging Azure for just those distribution points, now you can also leverage it to perform the desktop security and compliance management. So using System Center endpoint protection, you can distribute anti-malware, antivirus software, remediate vulnerabilities, and deploy Windows updates and software directly through the console. It also does give you a lot more depth in reporting, health monitoring, what's going on, as well as patching and compliance levels. So as we look briefly here at the secure and compliance settings, so a lot better functionality. So console alerts can be triggered. You don't have to recreate all your settings, so you can copy them from one platform to another and start recreating those policies. A lot better versioning and audit tracking. So when you set up your baseline, you can not only use it as a way to determine what devices and systems are within compliance, but also if you so desire, you can set it up to automatically remediate some of those issues that are out there. So, you know, if you consider it as far as a new laptop or a new device being built, put on the environment, can automatically update that. Laptop that's just been out of the office for a couple weeks, missed the patch cycle. When it comes back in, it can go against that security baseline and then automatically be remediated if that's the way you want to do it. It also gives you visibility into looking at at-risk devices, such as those mobile devices that may have been went through a jailbreak or rooted for Android devices. So a lot more in-depth, makes you feel a lot better about the security and compliance of those devices as you allow them more access to your environment. So if you quick look at the software update process. So your primary site now acts as the contact point with Microsoft Update Service and looks and sees if there's updates available. If there are, it'll automatically download them and queue them up for distribution. For your monthly updates, there's a couple of options. You can set up auto deployment rules that can now simply look for new updates and then download them each month. So it saves you the ability or the need to go out and manually do that. And you can use advanced filters to identify which updates you want. So you don't have to download everything. You can look for just critical. You can look for certain OS versions, things like that. So a lot of filtering around that. And the other option would be to automatically download those, but not have the deployment go out right away. That allows you to do that quick sanity check, validate that it's not going to cause any more problems or issues with your applications. And then once you have vetted those patches or those updates, you can set it up to enable that deployment. And then if you're not comfortable with either of those approaches, you can also use the new search capability to find the updates that you need each month, and then use the distribute software update wizards to create and deploy the update groups. So maybe you want one for your servers, one for your clients, different domain controllers in different groupings, so they're not all getting hit at the same time. And then as I mentioned earlier, as machines are added to the environment, or those laptops come back in from being out for a couple weeks, they can be scanned for compliance, and then as appropriate updates are then applied as needed.
So Dan, it looks like we have a question here from David. David wants to know, will there be integration for third-party application updates as well as Windows patches?
I believe that the third-party updates are coming. They're not fully integrated in the automation at this point. But yes, it's something that they are looking at digging into more deeply. Keith, I don't know if you have any more information on that than I do.
No, that's correct.
Okay. So as I mentioned, one of the great abilities now with System Center R2 is the ability to now set up a cloud distribution point. And this allows you to set up a content location that's accessible from anywhere for very low cost. And then it also allows you to service those internet-connected clients without having to set up an internet-facing configuration management role. So the ability to gives you the immediate, secured, and authenticated reach for deployments and software distribution. As I mentioned, it does not support OS builds at this time. Maybe a feature that's coming down the road, but at this point that is not available. And so, some of the other benefits around that. So any of the content that is sent from internally out to the cloud-based distribution point is encrypted before it's sent out to Azure. Another great benefit about Azure is you can manually scale that cloud service as you need it, up or down. So as more demands come in from internet-connected devices or just your business is growing, you can quickly install and provision more of those distribution points. sorry, I know we're getting close on time here, so I'm going to go through this a little bit. Another great advantage with R2 is around content management. So it's a new way of delivering the updates, patches, software, and everything, but making it more efficient the way that it uses disk. So it now looks, when it distributes a new, distributes out content out to the distribution points, and looks and see if there's similar files that are part of two different packages. And if so, it leverages a single instance store to only store one copy of that file in the content library. Then obviously have references pointing back to that other file. Saves you a lot of disk space, also saves you as far as network traffic. So not only does it optimize your disk storage, it helps you avoid distributing those files out to remote branch sites or remote distribution sites that may have lower lower bandwidth, so they're not doing that. So the way it works is when it's getting ready to distribute that package out there, System Center Configuration Manager will analyze all the files in that package, and then also look at the distribution point. If it determines that it's already out there, it's not going to resend that out there. It'll just incorporate references into the new package and then leverage that once that's delivered. Again, reduces a lot of storage as well as the network traffic. And also it speeds the ability to provision those packages out to the distribution points. I think we pretty much touched on the simplified administration, so I'm going to jump down to the management console. So again, as we mentioned, it integrates all of the different areas into one simplified console. Does leverage the intuitive ribbon interface that we're all getting used to with Office. Does provide that global search across all the different components. As we mentioned, the in-console alerts keep you up to date onto the health and status of the different distributions in your environment. A lot better filtering, and then also does integrate, like everything else, with Server 2012 with PowerShell. Again, touching on this, so from a mobile device management perspective, a device management. So not only do you have your mobile device management integrated directly in there, all your normal clients are out there, and you can do unified reporting across all the device platforms. So what applications have been delivered, what level of patching are they on, provide that common tools for policy and application management. And then also, as we mentioned, the whole focus is around that user-centric settings. So, understanding and setting up the way applications are delivered based on the device type, location, and what the users have access to. That's all now in one central location. Again, saving you from having to jump to different tools as you need to provision each of those areas. Another key area that a lot of businesses are concerned around is around role-based administration. So a lot more granularity and control around how you delegate roles and responsibilities within the new System Center. So now you can set up subgroups or subregions that are able to push out software updates, for example, or potentially do OS builds, and it gives you a lot better control and granularity over who gets what rights. Was limited in previous versions that there was some granularity, but maybe you had to give additional rights that you didn't want to, just to incorporate some right there. So, a lot of similarities to configurations 2007, but the way the roles are identified and the way they're done has changed. So it's a lot more, again, about what work needs to be done versus just a role that gives you more access than what you require.
Dan, Bill here has a question about the previous slide, slide 36, and wants to know if Zenab Distribution would display as an option under applications as well.
I know there is integration. I have not seen it. Keith, do you have any familiarity with that? Otherwise, we can take that as a follow-up question to get answered for you.
There's a Citrix plugin that will show the Zenab the applications I don't know if it shows up specifically on that section of the device console, but there's actually a plugin so you can manage the applications right within the SCCM console. You don't even have to go over to the Citrix management consoles to manage those apps. So they're in there. I don't know if they show up as the plugin below it, or if they show it actually up in the application, but they are there within System Center as a plugin.
All right. Just a couple more slides here, and I know we're getting really close on time, so I will go through the last room. One of the other key benefits and highly leveraged pieces of System Center is around operating system deployment. So Configuration Manager does provide all the tools that are needed for helping create those system images and then they can be deployed out to either computers that are managed by Configuration Manager directly, or for unmanaged computers by using different types of bootable media. Again, you can do everything from capturing the image that you want to deploy. You can capture and restore the user state data. So as the user moves from one PC to a new PC, or you upgrade that OS, you're able to capture those settings using the user state migration tool and then redeploy it. You can do it as you can just deploy that image based on a collection of computers, and then you also can create task sequences that perform multiple actions on the computer that complete that setup or customize that setup that don't require any user intervention. And I believe I have 2 minutes, so one last quick area that I'll hit on, and then I'll wrap up here, is around client activity and health. So as with any environment, you want to make sure that what is the health of my environment? How are my clients performing? Are they up to date? Have they been inventoried? What are the things that we can do to remediate those issues? So what we want is not only ability to look at what clients are reachable, but we also want to be able to understand which ones are not connecting. So it does give you that view into the last time a device connected. So especially important for those laptops and other mobile devices that are in and out of the environment and may not be connected every single day. And then also, as I mentioned earlier, that if you so desire, you can set up automatic updates. So when they do connect back in, if they've missed patches or other key updates, those can be applied. So a lot more visibility and control and reporting on how the environment looks and what the health and status of your clients are. And I believe I have like 2 minutes, so last thing I just wanted to throw out there, and then if we have a minute or two for questions, we'll answer those. But Core BTS is a training company as well, and we do have a number of classes coming up around System Center 2012 Configuration Manager. And then we also, any of the solution architects would be happy to come out or with our engineers if appropriate and have deeper discussions. So please feel free to reach out to Core BTS as needed.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us. We will stay on the line here if people have questions. Feel free to shoot them in the Q&A box. We do have Michael Reif from our training division who can answer questions, too, if you have questions about the training class. We'll give people just a minute or two here to type in. Otherwise, thank you for joining us. Great. So if there aren't any questions, I'd like to say that on behalf of our panel and myself today, thank you for joining us and taking time to view our presentation. If you have further questions, you can reach out to marketing.team@Core BTS, and we will send a link to this recording likely tomorrow. So keep an eye open in your inbox. Thank you. Oh, looks like we have a question from Albert asking if the Core BTS training is at a physical location or at another WebEx-based training. Michael, I will let you take that to talk a little bit more about that class.
Sure. We have both. We offer both solutions, whether it be remote, kind of similar scenario that you're participating in today. And with that remote solution, you do have physical access to remote servers that you can participate on the hands-on lab. As well, we do have in-class physical, seats available for folks to participate in that modality as well. So either or.
Great. Thank you very much, Mike.
Yeah.
All right, and thank you, everybody, for joining us. Have a great afternoon.